Hi, Pete's fans. Welcome to another episode of For Pete's Sake, your podcast, Everything Peterborough Pete's. I am your co-host, Josh Reeser. As always, is my co-host, twin brother, encyclopedia of OHL knowledge, and still, hopefully, Pete's optimist, Matt Reeser. I say that because the Pete's are now officially 0-7. It may feel like the sky is falling, and hopefully we are approaching the rock bottom just so that we can build it up again. Can only go up from here. We need to start winning some games. So we will recap another week that unfortunately saw the Pete's fail to return to the win column. There were 3 games this week. Sudbury, Guelph, and Owen Sound. We will have our thoughts and recaps of all those games. As always, even with a week where the Pete's are winless, there are some standouts. So we will give shout outs to players we thought had some strong play. We'll also take a look around the OHL. The good news is there are some teams that, spoiler alert, are our biggest geographical rival, not doing well as well. So misery loves company. It is, when you're not playing well, it is great to see your rivals not playing well as well. So not wishing any ill will on Oshawa, but no, actually, come to think of it, I am. So nice to see them struggling a little bit. We'll have the details for that for you. And we have another interview for you this week. I was able to chat with Brent Tully, had a great interview with him, former defenseman for the Pete's. So I will take you there about partway through our show. We'll replay that interview for you. It's a great insight to the Pete's and playing hockey at the pro level as well. So yeah, we will dive right in. First of all, we'll start with some positive news because we need that as Pete's fans. Gowan and Fitzgerald, our top 2 picks from this past draft year, are off to represent Canada at the U17s. Both players scheduled to Team Canada Red. The tournament is from November 3rd to the 9th. It is in Sarnia, Ontario this year. It means both players will likely miss 2 to 3 games depending on travel commitments back and whether they get a rest after a tourney like that or whether they're right back into games. So congratulations to both those guys. They will obviously be missed. They're a big part of the team already, but congratulations. It's a good thing for development, and hopefully they can come back from the U17s with maybe a medal and some confidence. And I know it's a great thing for development for young guys. So congrats to both of them. All right, we'll dive into our recaps now of those 3 games. Like we said, it was unfortunately 3 more losses. The first one I have for you is a close loss. They played Sudbury. It was the second time within a week that they played Sudbury, and this one was a 1-0 defeat to the Wolves. Liam Stutska got the start, and he was classic Liam Stutska, making 44 saves. Unbelievable. Nice to have him in the net. I don't know how much longer that will last. I don't know. I don't have any information in terms of where that's going, but it is nice to see him in the net. And like the good old days, he was stellar. The Pete's actually didn't have a horrible effort in this one. They fired 40 shots of their own. Efforts like this, they probably could have won this game, I would argue. Yeah. Efforts like this probably more often than not likely to get rewarded. Giving up 44 shots is not ideal, but firing 40 is a good offensive output. The Sudbury goaltender, Finn Marshall, he was good again. He was good when they played down in Sudbury. He was good again in front of the fans here in Peterborough. He made 40 saves for that shutout. Sudbury scored shorthanded. This is becoming an issue. The Pete's giving up shorthanded goals quite often, almost every game so far. I don't know whether they're trying too much on the power play to try and get it going, and then they leave themselves exposed. But you want your power play to give you momentum, and when the other team scores, it has the opposite effect. So we need to curb that in the right direction. Chase Lefebvre ejected for a check to the head and got a 2-game suspension during that play. It's the second veteran after Melee that Jonathan Melee, sorry, that got a couple game misconducts. So it's tough to see your overage veteran players miss time, especially close back to back when you're counting on them. Yeah, Page was out in this one. He had an injury from the previous game, so
you're down 3 veteran forwards.
Yeah, you're down 3 of your veterans. You're asking a lot of your young guys. You're asking a lot of them to step up, and it's tough to do. You need those veteran presence in your lineup, especially when things aren't going good. They need to be the guys that can kind of be your rock and hopefully get you out of the muck. So tough to see him go out for 2 games, and it's when he's back, he's one of the best goal scorers on the team, and he's got great speed. So anyways, in terms of the special teams, again, like I said, shorthanded goal. They did kill off some lengthy power plays in this game, including a double minor and a 5-minute major. But they were 0 for 6 on the power play, and they did give up that shorty. So special teams not really saving them at all, and that's where you can actually steal some wins. So some work to do special teams wise, and still defensively to get those shots manageable.
Yeah. And then you go on the road down to Guelph and Owen Sound after this. So you're going to be without Melee and Lefebvre and Page again for the Guelph game because Malee's sitting his second game and Lefebvre starts his suspension. So you're down some veteran forwards again. They actually moved Thanasi up to forward.
Yeah.
He didn't look out of place. It kind of reminded me of a little bit of Derek Mathers when they moved him up. Maybe that's what they're going to do with him. He has a big shot. He's physical, so maybe that's the move is you move him up the lineup.
And great hair. Great hair. That's not irrelevant. Yeah. I'm just commenting.
Yeah. So that's what you kind of have to do when you have your veteran players injured and not in the lineup is you have to try these new formulas. Zach Bowen was in net for the Guelph game. They lost 6-3, but I don't really think that tells the story of this game. It was close for long portions of it. Bowen made 40 saves in this one, a couple of big saves again. Caden Taylor scored, which was nice to get his confidence going. Carson Cameron got his first of the year. And this was after Guelph had gotten up 3-0. So the Pizza got it back to 3-2. Guelph scores, goes up 4-2. You're like, oh no. But then Fitzpatrick scores 11 seconds later off the next draw. And it's 4-3.
Fitzmagic.
So you got a 4-3 game. And then the Pizza took a penalty and Guelph scored on that power play. Goes up 5-3 and then gets an empty netter. So really tight game. I like their fight back in this one. Fitzpatrick got a goal and an assist. So he looks like he's starting to feel more comfortable out there. He's never really not looked comfortable, but he's putting up points and a big part of the offense. And their discipline was better in this one. They only gave up 3 power plays. So overall, not a terrible road game, but I think it was a winnable game. And I think that's what was kind of hard about this loss is I think Sudbury and Guelph could have easily been 2 wins with a little bit of a timely finish or a little bit better on the power play. You're looking at 2 wins instead of an 0-2 start to your weekend. And when you're losing and you got a bunch of young guys, it maybe eats at you a little bit. But that's kind of the story of the Guelph game is they were right there. And then at the end, Guelph just kind of got that power play converted. And that's what good teams do is they get a power play and they put a team away.
Yep.
And that's what the Petes will have to learn.
Yep.
And they can get there. That's what happens with a young team.
Agreed. Agreed.
And then you go to Owen Sound. This one again was 7-2. Doesn't tell the story of this one at all.
Crazy game. This one was nuts.
Yeah. So Connor Smith and Sam McHugh are on Owen Sound from last year's team. Connor Smith plays a ton of minutes for this team. on the back end. He's actually leading defenseman in OHL scoring. Got a hat trick this week.
I love seeing that.
They beat Niagara.
I love
I
Connor
don't know.
Smith.
They beat Niagara.
Yeah. I don't know.
So the Petes fell behind 2-0 in this one. McCallum seemed to kind of get the team going. He got in a fight. Actually, it was a pretty long fight, and they threw some good fisticuffs in there, as they say. And that sparked them, actually. Malik scored shorthanded. Nice to be on the other side of scoring shorthanded.
Yep.
And then Levesque actually scored to tie it early in the third period on a 2-on-1 with Levesque. Two of your younger guys, Levesque and Parrish, going in on a 2-on-1. Levesque scores, gets his first career OHL goal, so congratulations to him. And you got a 2-2 game, and you're like, oh, things are looking good. The Petes have the momentum. And then Owen Sound just all of a sudden went on this run of 5 goals super fast.
It just, the momentum looked like it just all of a sudden just flipped to Owen Sound. And I don't know if you saw anything in particular that happened, but it's hard to say. Like, and then they just like they couldn't stop it. It was like a faucet that starts to leak, and then all of a sudden it bursts, and it's just there wasn't much you could do, or like a snowball rolling down a hill where it just kept going and going and going and going, and 5 unanswered goals.
5 unanswered goals, and then it's a 7-2 final. 53 shots against them, 23 in the third period. Can't blame Stützle in this one.
No.
All the goals that were scored were like guys sitting there on not being covered, tap-ins. Again, he played fantastic, I thought, in this one. Landon Hookie scored a hat trick in the third period in 5 minutes and 40 seconds. One was shorthanded again. So you're giving up another shorthanded goal, which you can't do if you want to win this year as being the Petes. In general, you can't, but the Petes especially can't give up special teams plays like that and win. They're just not built that way this year. They need the full 60 with the power play generating momentum, with the penalty kill doing its job to get a win. And again, you don't have Lefebvre in the lineup. You don't have Page in the lineup. Malik came back in, made a difference. So you see what even his absence means to the team from the other 2 games. One of the bright parts, Mason Johnson got to see his first OHL action. He's stopped all 6 shots he faced. So it's good to see him get in a game, get rewarded for his hard work. Shout out to him and Levesque for his first career goal, and Parrish getting his first point. Some good things. The young guys are kind of leading the offensive charge. And I think now it's a factor of the veterans kind of taking some of the torch and running with it. Because I think the young guys are proving themselves, and the veterans are getting there. And I think some of them are on the cusp of going on a streak. And I think 1 or 2 or 3 of them catching fire would be, we're telling a different story of these 3 games. I don't know if you agree with that statement, but.
I think it's what we've seen right from the start of the years, like moments where they play well. Like their moments are there, but it's just not enough each game. And it's hard to win in this league. The Petes, like you mentioned, aren't a team that can afford to take any time off during a game because they're rebuilding. And so when the Petes make a mistake, it oftentimes ends up in a goal or 2. And then it's hard to get those goals back because they just don't have the same firepower they did. But, you're encouraged by moments where they look pretty good. They just need to continue to stretch that out, learn from these mistakes. Their power play needs to improve. They can't be giving up shorthanded. Their defensive game, they need to give up less shots. Those are things that can and will be worked on. So back to the drawing board. But you're right. I would say at least 2 of the games, they're right there. And the Owen Sound one, they're right there and actually tie the game, and then the wheels fall off. So I think, they could have easily ended their losing streak these past 3 games. But having said that, there's definitely some stuff that needs to be worked on, and I hope this is rock bottom. I mean, Yeah, we're kind of like leading into our overall thoughts here, but it's a tough week. I predicted beforehand that this was one where they could have come away with 3 wins. I
With
thought,
5 points. And
yeah, and then all of a sudden, you're 3-4 instead of 0-7. Um, Going forward, by 10 games, if you can win your next 3 and go 3-7, and it's not still not a great record, but you can minimize the damage. I don't know um, if that's the goal, but yeah, it's still early. That's the good news, but the defense, when goals are not coming, defense can focus maybe a bit too much on the offense. Maybe that's why we're, giving up a lot of shots. It seems like there's a lot of shots given up each game. They're kind of over 40 most games still. So we need to figure out the defensive coverage. Um, Bad penalties. It's particularly at bad times. I've noticed, not so much maybe the call. There has been a couple where it's a penalty that didn't need to be taken.
yeah,
But often, you go back to the second game against Guelph, they're trying to come back, and then there's a power play
yeah,
late in the game for Guelph.
yeah,
Um, some suspensions hurt us. So discipline, again, hard nosed hockey. I've got no problem with that, but you need to do it in a way that doesn't hurt your team. And right now it is. There's just been some unfortunate penalties that have just killed your momentum at the worst possible time, and you can't win that way. Suspensions, like I mentioned, Mealy and Lefebvre, those guys are too valuable to have out of the lineup. So you can't have those guys missing significant time. And then Page, he's 100% effort every time. A great leader for the young guys getting hurt. That what can you do there?
yeah,
He's injured, so hopefully he's back in and not seeing the effects for too long, because we need all 3 of those guys back in the lineup to help dig us out of this. Um, yeah, Levesque and Fitzgerald combined for 4 goals this week. So the young guys, is that the
it's the season. They've got 4 of the
or
goals
4
for the
goals?
Pete's.
Sorry, on the season so far. So the young guys contributing. And then you look at guys like Malie, Lefebvre, McCollum, Page, McIntyre, Addy, Young, Faulkner, Taylor. They have a combined 7. So not too much more, a little bit more from your veterans you'd like to see, and I think they will get there. The Pete's have just, they've just kind of started slow. And I still, I'm concerned in the way that there's some trends that need to be fixed, but it's too early to throw in the towel still. I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist for the Pete's. I love supporting the boys and being positive. I will continue to do that. And I think with some tweaks, I think they can get some wins, and um, hopefully it's before they're too far down in the standings.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I just don't think if you had told me before the year that McCallum hadn't scored 7 games into the season, I would believe you.
Yeah.
Same with Addy, Young, McIntyre,
Yeah.
Faulkner. None of those guys have a goal yet. If you had told me none of them had a goal 7 games into the season, I would have been like, you're crazy. McCallum at the end of last year was like dynamite. He was scoring every game. He was getting 2 or 3 points.
Yep.
And he is still a great player. All these guys are great players. You're not a first round pick in the OHL if you're a bad player.
Yeah.
So there'll be weeks where you'll see it. A lot of the Pete's players are streaky goal scorers. Lefebvre is a good example of that. When he gets a goal, he usually goes on a 6 or 7 game run where he goes in bunches. Yep. Malie's the same.
Yep.
Addy's the same.
Yep.
McIntyre's the same. We saw stretches last year where he was carrying the offense.
Yep.
You get 2 of these guys going and then cycling 2 of the new guys being the offensive catalyst for a couple weeks. You're talking about a completely different record.
Absolutely.
And if they're suspended too, it hurts because they can't score. Like Lefebvre played part of the first against Sudbury?
Yeah.
What if he plays the second and third? Does he score a goal in that game and we're talking about a win?
Yeah. Or even a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just need some sort of mojo to get going. I honestly believe confidence is so huge, especially for a young team. We just got to get something, and continue to work hard is all you can do. Continue to grind it out and tweak some of these little things, these disciplines, shore up the defensive structure a bit, and I think we can get there. Absolutely. Well, I guess we can do a little teddy bear update too. So the Pete's scored 5 more goals this week. So 5 more bears added to our bag. So we will add those to our collection. Just a reminder, in honor of the Goudreau brothers who unfortunately passed away. We're collecting bears for each Pete's goal from now until Teddy Bear Toss Night, which is December 5th. So, we'll add 5 more bears and hopefully a lot more in the weeks going forward. Well, anyways, like we said, we are optimists for the Pete's. We will always be optimists. We're always going to support the boys. They are our team, and we get through this together, and that includes the fans. It includes the boys, but it includes the fans getting behind them. So stay behind them. Don't get down on the boys. They need your support now, maybe more than ever, to let them know we're still proud of them and we can turn this around. So having said that, we're going to point out some of the standouts from the week, the 3 stars of the week. Back into the 3 stars of the week. He was there almost every week last year. Liam Stutska for that 44 save effort versus Sudbury. Kept it close. It was unfortunately outdueled by the goalie from the Wolves, but he was nothing short of spectacular. A big reason why they were in that game. And then another 40 more saves against Owen Sound. So unbelievable. Saw a lot of pucks and made a lot of saves, as he usually does. Next up is Levac, his first career goal, and he has been very, very strong on the penalty kill so far, which has gotten a lot of ice time. And third is Fitzgerald. He is the second week. He is one of the 3 stars. It is now becoming a habit where he's putting up points, as Matt said, which is great to see. He's looked confident right from the get-go, and now he's getting rewarded. So another 2-point night now has him in top 10 in rookie scoring. I believe he's 9th overall last I checked. So in rookie scoring. So more of that as he continues his strong play. But like I said, Matt, here, it's not all doom and gloom. We are 0-7, but there's some signs around the OHL of other teams not doing as well either, and some doing very well. So why don't you take us a look around the OHL, some trades this week, and what's the lay of the land around the league that the Petes are in?
So North Bay traded Wakely. He was at Edmonton's camp, never played a game for them this year. He's an overager. So Barry picked him up, gave away Shamar Moses, a 4th rounder, and a 5th in 2027. Moses is a former 1st round pick, also a biblical character, but that's besides the point. Interesting trade, I think, here. When you have a line like Van Stitzo, Romani, Wakely, I kind of would have just kept it together. It's hard to build that chemistry. I know North Bay is great at it, so I'm not saying it, but I mean, it's hard to break up a top.
It seems early in the year kind of to make this. I don't know. Oftentimes teams wait and see where the year's going before they start to unload, but I don't know. Maybe you get more if if he's an overager. Maybe you get more because Wakely's going to play a longer part of the year. I don't know. So,
and then he goes to Barry and scores 3 goals and 2 assists and 5 points in 2 games. So, but then Moses got 7 points in his first 3 games with North Bay.
So it's a trade that looks like it's worked out for both teams.
So again, that's why I'm not a general manager in this league. And then many teams, like we said, are struggling, like the Petes out of the gate. The ones that are kind of shocking is Oshawa, especially because they loaded up. They gave up 50 shots against Windsor the other night. Lost 5-2. Brampton Steelheads got off to that huge start, but they've lost 3 straight, and that's coming off their goalie being in that fight and getting suspended for 4 games. So maybe their goalie depth is a little bit of a question mark.
Yep.
Easton Cowan's back, and London has kind of been sparked by that. They've also got Oliver Bonk back, Dickinson back, Julian back, and they've kind of gone on a 3-game winning streak, looking more like a contender. Big
unfortunately.
Week. Yeah. Big week for some Petes, former Petes. Nick Lardis got 8 points, 6 goals and 2 assists in 3-game winning streak. So Brantford is getting back on the winning ways. We thought they'd be a strong team, but now they're kind of looks like they're turning the corner a bit. Leander is actually starting to play really, really well for them as well, who was the former backup, I guess, in Brampton.
He was the starter last
year. And then now so he's looking good there.
Yeah.
Kitchener, who we thought would kind of be near the bottom, has got a point 6 straight games. I think they're top of the West or near the top.
Yeah.
I think Windsor's above them in Saginaw, but they're right up there.
Yeah.
Connor Smith, like we said, is leading the OHL in goals.
Smitty, big rig.
And then Quentin Musty isn't reporting to Sudbury and has requested a trade.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting to see. And on another note, Nathan Leake, former Peterborough Pete, who went to the the Quebec League.
Yeah. Charlottetown, I believe.
Has 3 goals this year already for that team.
Wow. That's opportunity and change of scenery, you know.
So good for him. I liked him as a player.
Yeah.
Didn't really have, I think, the ice time they wanted to give him here, so they gave him an opportunity and he's run with it. So congrats to him.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see where that Quentin Musty thing goes, and it's great to see former Pete's doing so well. We love those guys when they leave Peterborough. I still like rooting for Big Rig and for guys like Nathan Leake as well and Nick Lardis. So good on them. Well, anyways, we'll cut to our interview at this point. Like I said, I had the chance to chat with former Pete's defenseman, world junior champion, and he played some pro hockey in the AHL and overseas. It was Brent Tully. He was gracious enough to give me about 50 minutes. So we'll cut to that. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and then we'll come back on and we'll round out the week ahead for the Petes. So we'll cut to the interview next. Enjoy. All right, folks, we are pleased to be joined by former Peterborough Pete's defenseman, played for the Maroon and White from 1990 to 94, recording 3 consecutive seasons of 30-plus points. Still remains 3rd highest scoring defenseman in Pete's history, a 2-time World Junior gold medalist, including All-Star team selections in 1993, and captain of the World Junior team in 94, a 4th-round pick of the Vancouver Canucks back in 1992, 3 years in the AHL, and a 5-year career over in Germany in the DEL. And to top it all off, a recent induction into the Peterborough Sports Hall of Fame, which is well-deserved. It is Brent Tully. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It is an honor to be talking to you, sir.
Well, all my pleasure. It's great to be here, and good on you guys for doing this. There's I don't have to tell you, there's so many loyal Pete's fans across not just the city, the area, and it's great that you're doing this for them.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start way back. I'll go, what was your earliest memory of hockey? I read a little bit, you were a lacrosse player, you were a hockey player back in the day. Were there other sports involved? How did you kind of, get into sports? And then specifically, how did it morph into hockey becoming kind of your primary one?
Yeah, no, great question. Well, I've come from a pretty athletic family for sure. My father was a hockey player growing up, so I guess it's one of those family things where it gets passed down and you get put on skates at a young age and you start from there. So, as far as going back to the early days, I remember learning how to skate at the Northcrest Arena.
Yes.
Being petrified of having to step on this slippery ice. In fact, I didn't want to take my skate guards off, I think. Go figure. I had to step on. But remember that. Remember playing for St. Anne's in what was the Church Hockey League here in
Yeah.
Peterborough for my early years. And then it kind of, grew from there. Loved the game, of course. Played a lot of different sports, soccer, baseball. Eventually, my summer sport turned into lacrosse, which I loved a great deal. But hockey was always number one. I mean, I think, while it's a whole other episode probably to talk about the two or three sport athletes today, we certainly put our hockey sticks away for the summer and picked up another sport, and it was lacrosse for me. And so many great memories playing that game with so many great people as well. But being able to come up through the minor Pete system was a real treat, and a lot of great teammates through the years. I still see many of them today, and great coaches, of course. And came up in an era where the coaches weren't necessarily always really hockey people. They were just people willing to give their time to coach, and they were good people. And it's certainly changed today on a great scale where there's a lot more coaches with hockey backgrounds and whatnot coaching kids. But just I mean, again, the community that we have here in Peterborough, it's a rich sports tradition, as you know, and was just happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. I hope you had really good success as a St. Anne's player, because that was actually my first team as well. I came up through the church league as well. I never really progressed any higher than that, but I was St. Anne's, and then I did play for North Minster for a couple of years as well. But St. Anne's they were the Montreal Canadiens colors back in the day. I don't know if that was always their go-to, but that was when I was playing.
Yeah, I don't know when it changed. I don't think too long afterwards, but they were actually purple and gold when I came.
Okay.
So it was a different color scheme for sure.
Yeah, almost the old LA Kings maybe, or something
that's
like
right.
that. Yeah. Were you always a defenseman? Did you play multiple positions, or did you know from right on you wanted to be back on the point?
No, I was my first year at AAA, which was minor Adam as they called it then. I played center, and I was one of the bigger kids, taller kids on the team, and I think my coach at some point that year just decided, I don't know if we needed a defenseman or whatnot, and maybe I was just the big kid that could go back there, but. I made that transition early for sure. And my father was a defenseman. So I think, there's not too many young kids, at least not then, that, I don't know, wanted to volunteer to play defense. Everybody wants to score goals, right? But anyway, found a love for it at an early age, and, still found a way to be offensive from back there. And it was kind of funny because my shot was always one of my fortes growing up, and from a very young age, I could shoot the puck pretty well, and that kind of stuck with me through the years.
Mm-hmm. Did you find, you mentioned a whole bunch of sports, lacrosse, and did you find there's some debate? People say today they wish kids growing up would take a break from hockey and play a different sport, whether it's just to mentally refocus for a bit and get a break from the grind of the game, or some of it's it actually helps you with hockey with hand-eye coordination or positioning or a different kind of cardio or anything. Did you find that with yourself, like it allowed you to come back and hockey was kind of fun the whole time, or what was your experience with those other sports as well?
Yeah, big believer in that. They were a huge proponent to success for me, and I know things have changed, like you said, today, where I find that most sports are competing for 12 months a year, and there's a lot of crossover, and you know what, the reality is that works for a really small number of kids. And, while parents are pushing their kids to go through that today, and not all to blame, because it's just kind of what you're expected to do. And
Right.
it is a shame, but you certainly see, I know, having been involved at the junior level, um, and seeing kids come through our program where you could just tell they were done, they were burnt out, or they were,
Mhm.
just not enthusiastic about the game anymore. And people are shocked by that, and said, well, not really that shocking when
Yeah.
all the demand that's on them from day one when they're growing up. To Again, it goes back to, there's very few out there that are meant to be uber competitive athletes, all the way through their life. And at some point, they just reach a peak of interest, not necessarily ability, but just from an interest level. And it's tough for children to understand that, because that's all that they knew growing up.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's not going to change, unfortunately. But I think for us coming up through, like you had said, we were excited to start back to a sport,
Yes.
where
Yes.
today there's no real distinction, even though there's seasons, as we call them. There's not much of a break.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So then along the way, I imagine, a lot of Canadian kids, if you're in a hockey town like Peterborough, you have dreams of being in a high level hockey player. I knew it wasn't realistic early on. Like I said, I never went past the church league. At what point along the way did start thinking, this is something that could be, I could have a pro career in this. I have my sights set on moving to the next level, and OHL, and then even further. When did that hit you as like an okay, I got a shot here?
Well, I think that, again, going back to the old titles of age groups, I moved from major peewee to major bantam. So I skipped my minor bantam year,
Hmm.
and I think that was the point in time where, maybe realized, probably more my parents realized it needed a little bit more. And so I moved up an age group, which wasn't really popular within Peterborough to do, but we made a push to do it, and it was great. Got to play. That age group had some pretty good players, Corey Stillman and Rick Morton, and some others that maybe are escaping me right now, but to name a couple that went on to play junior and pro. And the idea was to do that, and then maybe to skip to what was junior B the following year. And for one reason or another, didn't do that and didn't play an age up, and ended up that following year back in my own age group, major bantam.
Hmm.
So I played a second year of major bantam, but we had an excellent team. We went to what today would be the OHL Cup. It was called the Canadian Tire Cup at that time.
Yeah,
So we really overachieved, I'll say, for as good as we were. And it panned out well for me, of course, but it was not quite the plan that had originally laid out. But so it was right into that time frame. Realized that there was maybe something there to pursue.
for sure. Awesome. So draft day 1990, you get picked by the Petes. Today, with social media and online, I think that they're following it on their phones, and they know they're selected 5 seconds. How did it go down back in 1990? Were was it you were waiting for a call? Were you literally sitting by a phone? Were you alerted a while later? Like, how does that process go down back when technology wasn't as far along as it is now?
Yeah, and I know it's a sign of my age and everything else, but I truly still feel sorry for kids today that have to sit through a virtual draft.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
But they don't know any different. So, but we had an in-person draft. It was at the Herb Carnegie Arena in North York.
Right.
Remember it well. And it was such a great experience to be called there. And I remember driving in, remember sitting there with my family, and I didn't know I was going to be drafted by Peterborough, but I talked to Dick Todd and Jeff Toohey prior to the draft, and they'd kind of indicated to me that if I was still around in the second round, and that they would probably select me. And so I kind of had my fingers crossed, because for no other reason than just wanting to play in my hometown and the rich tradition here. It wasn't about not wanting to play somewhere else. It was
Right.
just I really wanted to play here. And lo and behold, they had 2 picks in the second round, and they didn't take me with the first one, which made me nervous. But
Mhm.
their second pick was just 2 picks later.
Right.
The pick in between was, as I joke today and have friends that played in Sault Ste. Marie and beat us in the Memorial Cup a
Mm.
few years later. They had
Mhm.
the next pick, and I was extremely nervous that they were going to pick me. Uh,
Mhm.
they took another defenseman, and I joke with my friends I would have went to 3 Memorial Cups if they had picked me, but as it turns out, I went the next pick,
Yeah.
and that first pick was Jordy Kinnear, who was another uh, big Pete's defenseman for us for a few years, of course. So it worked out really well.
Absolutely. Did you feel any like more expectation or nerves like being a hometown kid picked by the Pete's, or you said you were excited to join the club, but you know how we love our Pete's, and our community can be hockey crazy. Did you feel any added pressure at all being selected by the hometown?
I think so, for sure. I mean, I think the excitement of it outweighed any of the pressure. But I mean, it was, yeah, just surreal to get to play after watching the team for many years, of course, as a young guy. And we went through not terrible growing pains, but certainly some competitive years. My first couple of years, where we battled to come up to win the division, and then that third year, of course, was almost a perfectly dream year, but outside of not winning our final game, it was pretty darn good. And so it was, yeah, just yeah, there was the pressures of it, and then go to the other end of the spectrum. My last year, we struggled after loading up for a Memorial Cup run, and there was some difficulty there for sure. But all in
Mhm.
all, couldn't have been happier with playing here for 4 years.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, so yeah, you land in the Pete's, and like you said, you had that awesome year, and it was 92, 93. I guess, was the Memorial Cup runners up. You guys had an incredible record that year, 46, 15, and 5. Some great players on that team. Was there anything else you could point to besides, because there's always team, you said, you loaded up a couple of years later, didn't work out. Kind of anything else you can point to, or how do you guys know early on when it's going to be your year? I don't know if this. I'm kind of trying to come up with this question and word it off the top of my head. Like it's so hard to win, even if you have the right players and you can have a great coach in place. But was there a factor maybe that year where it just clicked and you were like, all right, we know we can beat anyone any night. We know we're a darn good hockey team. And can you point your finger at anything in particular that year?
Yeah, I think, like you said, we knew going into that season we were going to be very strong, without a doubt. And then very early on, and again back in those years, trades didn't happen as often, especially in Peterborough. It was quite rare that very much had that. consistent, rebuild every 4 years where, there was a certain amount of kids each age almost, where there was, an equal amount of turnover. So it wasn't a big thing to tip the ship, if you will, to either go for it or otherwise. And we went out and we traded for Corey Stillman early on that year. And that's when the kind of went, okay, we mean business here.
Yeah.
Of course, that was a big trade, for our team. And so I think that just, really set the tone for we're the team. And we, like you said, we kind of cruised through that regular season where, things on most nights really felt easy for us. And that easy feeling almost was a deterrent for us, because I think, when you looked at the turn of the season at the start of the new year, we didn't really have a lot to play for down the stretch. And,
Right.
When I talked to some of the guys, especially the guys that I know on Sault Ste. Marie, when you look at how they entered to get into, not into the playoffs, but into the first place, it was a grind for them, and they were really playing playoff hockey at the end of the regular season, where we were on cruise control, quite frankly. So it almost cost us. It cost us. We played in that unique Super Series that year to see who would host the Memorial Cup, and we really bombed on that one, and then we got taken to 7 games in what was our first round of playoffs by Sudbury. So we were 1 game away from it being a disastrous season. So that was, again, it was pretty fun to play in, and nobody, I don't know if all the stats are recorded or not, because I talked to somebody not so many years ago where they said that there was no record anywhere of what our plus minus statistic was. And, I think Chris Pronger won the CHL plus minus that year at plus 92, I think. And
Yeah.
There was, 5 of us that were all north of plus 60, which all 5 of us, and I think I'm referring to Jason Daw, Mike Harding, Dave Roach, Chris Pronger, and myself. I think I was 5th on that list at plus 62 maybe, or something.
Yeah.
And I would have won the CHL plus minus award at 5th. And in turn, so we had the 5 highest guys in the Canadian Hockey League for that. So we, and it was a fun year, and so many great players, and just great chemistry, and all the way through the lineup. When you talk about a role of players, we had exceptional guys that could do any one of the roles that you need to have success.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, you mentioned Pronger. Obviously, you've played with some great players along the way. He's one that definitely jumps out. You would have played directly with him for was it 2-3 years maybe, or two years for sure. And what was it like playing with him in terms of, it's this guy that I know Jeff Toohey had to kind of convince to come to Peterborough, and then he shows up, and was it evident right away that he had star potential? And I know he would even admit, I'm sure, that he had a bit of a mean streak. So were you checking him hard in practice, or were you giving him some room, or what was the overall experience like playing with a guy like Pronger?
Well, yeah, it's like you said. We go back to an era of no social media and no internet. I remember seeing him for the first time at under 17 camp. And, we heard about this kid from Northern Ontario that was going to be there that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes and shows up, and he's, 6'6", and he weighed maybe 140 pounds or 150 pounds soaking wet. And, but you could sense the hockey IQ right away, for sure. And then when he came to Peterborough, and we, convinced him to come, and, he was on his way to Bowling Green like his older brother. And, it was a real, again, big piece to us that we got a year before to solidify our run there that following year. But yeah, he just like he did through his whole career that fans would remember from the NHL and international competitions. He just he was a dominant force that knew the game really well, or read it very well, and and like you said, could defend himself really well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the mean streak was something that he had certainly early, and loved to win, and wasn't afraid to tell guys how he thought things should be done for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that followed him through his whole career. And but he was great for us for a couple of years, for certain, and know that he enjoyed his time here, of course.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you were a big part of his development. You're only as good as your defense partner, right? So I think any of his success, on the Pete's and in the future, I'm sure he's got to attribute at least some to you anyways. That's what I would say.
Well, we were good partners for a couple of years for sure, and of course, geez, I don't know if it's happened since or not, but to have two guys go from a club team to play on the World Junior team doesn't happen very often, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just a matter of we both played, I'll say, a similar style to a degree, taller offensive capabilities and whatnot. It was tough to get around us for sure. Our wingspans were pretty wide, of course, so we complemented each other well that way. And yeah, it was fun to be with. I learned a lot, and we grew together through a couple of those formidable years for sure.
Did the coach of the World Juniors keep you guys together just as a partnership because you had that time playing together anyway? So when you got to Canada, it would have seemed natural. I imagine he just kept you guys as a defense partnership.
Yeah, definitely. We played through the whole tournament together, and I think that that was one of the things. I mean, that year we knew that he was going to be on the World Junior team, and I was kind of I'll say not a late addition, but I wasn't on the radar for that team at the start of the year. I hadn't gone to their summer camp that they have, and so it was a surprise for me when I got the call to go to just the training camp, and and I know that while you don't remember the fine bits of it, I know that I had a strong camp when I was there, but I was still probably on the outside looking in when I went to that training camp in Kitchener that year. But yeah, it was pretty special certainly to make that team and to compete.
For sure. And then, the best case scenario, you go through the tournament and you not only had, personal success being named to the All-Star team, you had an awesome tournament and but you win gold as well. Can you tell us what it's like to stand and watch the flag go up and the anthem and shake the hands and get the medals? What's going through your mind when you get that ultimate prize playing for your country?
Well, yeah, again, surreal right from the get go. You like you said, you go. It wasn't as popular again. Even on television, it was on TV and whatnot, but it really just, I'll say, starting to gain momentum. There was the World Juniors there. Like, I mean, I remember watching where John Slaney scored the winning goal for Canada, and that was a guy that played junior against, so that kind of drew the reality of it, I guess, to you. And then, but to think a couple of years later would be playing there, you just have no concept to think that that's a possibility. And I still remember us walking in, and the first tournament was in Sweden, and seeing your jerseys hung up and whatnot is a pretty special moment. And then like you said, the tournament back then was a a round robin style. So you played your 7 games, and the team with the best record won the gold, and so on and so forth. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's an argument for the entertainment factor of both styles the way it is today. And then I know it's
Mm-hmm.
more made for TV today the way that it is, but every game is obviously crucial. There's no round robin games in your pool that, not say they don't mean anything, but they don't have the same
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you lose a game in that old style, you're in big trouble to
Mm-hmm.
win gold anyway. And so, we really started that tournament because the team the year before had finished 6th. So we played some of the tougher teams first, the U.S., Russia, Finland, Sweden. So it was a tough grind right from the get go. And Sweden, for all intents and purposes, that first year were heavily favored to win the gold medal. Marcus Naslund, Peter Forsberg, and Kenny Jonsson on defense. But we prevailed, and it was an exciting one for sure. But when you, like you said, you receive those medals and you hear the anthem and whatnot, it's a pretty incredible experience.
Absolutely. And twice in a row, you go back the next year, and you're not only a returning player and you win again, but you're captain now. Just what were your role in bringing a team together like that quickly? I always wondered. You have a team full of guys coming from all different organizations around Canada. I don't know if there are any from NCAA your year, but you have guys coming in to form Canada, then they're playing against each other, and some of them are on rival teams, and you have a very short time to kind of gel. And Canada, today obviously they expect to win every year, so there's that pressure as well. So being the captain, what was how was your role in sort of bringing the guys together to focus on that one thing? And did you have a kind of captaincy or leadership style that you employed that you thought worked pretty well?
Yeah, well, again, a great question. I think I based a lot of it on my first year. Our captain was Martin Lapointe, who was a great leader, great captain, that carried over into the NHL, of course, in his career. So in listening to the things that he said, having had experience at the tournament 2 years, I think he played 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, we were that second year not picked to win a medal. We were, it was kind of the year where we had a lot of guys in the NHL that could have been playing. Chris was one of them, Pronger, Alex Dagg, Chris Gratton. There was a handful of them. And, so pulling the guys together, I mean, there was never any disbelief. I mean, I think anytime, regardless of who's in the lineup, when you're playing for a Canadian team, you have quite a bit of confidence. But, for me, it was passing along the importance of, like you said, you're probably a star player wherever you're coming from on your
Mm-hmm.
club team. You have to accept your role when you get there, and you have to accept it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
There's no time for pouting, and we, not to again throw anybody under the bus, but we did deal with that a little bit. And it was, I know in one case we told the player to go home if you don't like it. Like, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
And there's no
Yeah.
time to be dealing with that, like you said, in a short time frame. So, it's tough, and I can only imagine it's tougher today. I think probably with, just again the hype of, and the focus that are on the star players on club teams that, I think when they come to that tournament, we had guys that were, first round draft picks that, were the 10th forward or the 7th defenseman, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's not an easy thing to swallow, but in the end, for the greater good, things prevailed, and they certainly did for us. So it was great.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that comment, it's just, I feel like it's bang on. Like, yeah, everyone's, top player on their team, like you said, and then you come over and it's not the case. And the thing that it reminded me of was Akil Thomas a couple of years ago. Star player on his junior team, and he was a fourth line player, World Juniors, and then he gets the opportunity and he scores the game winning goal in the final game. So he was great at accepting his role and blocking shots and playing less minutes, and gets rewarded when it's time to. It was good on him to kind of just say, that's what I can do to help the team. And he was rewarded and got a shot to be the hero, and made the most of it. So
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So then NHL 1992, drafted by the Vancouver Canucks. Again, was it a live draft? You're down at the draft for the whole experience for that one. And kind of just take us through that process. Was it Vancouver, a team you talked to a number of times? Did you have any indication it would be them? And then getting drafted by a Canadian team, was there any increased excitement or pressure being drafted in a team like Vancouver?
Well, it was an interesting day for me. Uh, it was at the Old Montreal Forum.
Mm-hmm.
Is where the draft was, so that was pretty neat in itself. But I know, again, even though there wasn't the same hype as there is today, there's the ratings still, and the hockey news and whatnot always put out their big draft rating, and depending on who you listen to, I was projected to be a first round pick, and I think for as humble as I'd like to think that I am, you still start to believe in, start to believe in the press clippings, as we used to say, and that can get you into trouble. But
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those where I went and, just based on the teams that you talked to, thought that, you might be, I know, Boston had said that, they had me ranked as the second overall defenseman in the draft, and they didn't take me in the first 3 rounds. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
who knows, right? But anyway, so sadly, I admit that it was a bit of a letdown, even though it was drafted in the fourth round. I almost hate saying that, but it's not about it not being really honored by it, but it's you're 18 years old and you're being told these things, and you start to believe in them. But once that passed, and you were, I'll say, accepted into the Canucks family and whatnot, it was a huge honor. A lot of tradition there. I didn't know that they were a team that were going to draft me, or hadn't had any extra talks with them, I wouldn't say. But no, it was a great experience overall, and they were great to me. And again, it's I think one of those lessons that kids can learn from, because I dealt with, whether it was during that time frame or in years in the future, of kids that I knew that thought they were going to be drafted and didn't get drafted at all, and those are tough pills at those particular times for
For
kids
sure.
that age.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it leads to some years in the AHL, the Syracuse Crunch. Can you talk about that transition, from junior to pro hockey? I know a lot of times guys mention just the speed. I don't know whether that was one of the big things for you, but yeah, what was that move like in terms of challenges? And did you have any guys you played with prior that kind of made the transition a little bit easier, or were you kind of coming into a whole new group of guys? What was the move right to pro hockey like?
Yeah, definitely a big adjustment, without a doubt. Like you said, I mean, the speed of the game, increases that much more. Uh, Probably a big difference from now to back then is it was a very tough league. Any given night, the team that you were going to be playing, there was it wasn't for the faint of heart, as they say. It was, a lot of tough characters playing, and a more physical game for sure. So those 3-3, 3 games and 3 nights scenarios where you were on the bus and different parts of the East Coast of the U.S. Took a toll for sure. Again, yeah, I got to play with guys like Jason Cullimore, who was a Pete, was in Syracuse for a while, and then some other guys I knew from junior, of course. But we had a young team the first year, which was, I think, really helpful, that we were all kind of, or at least most of us, in a similar boat, where it was our first or second year of pro. So lots of growing pains, but it was a really, really fun group, and a fun city that, still seeing a lot of success with hockey there. And we were the first team back in Syracuse after many years of no hockey there for them. But they've done such a great job of, hosting an American League team.
So in those years, you're in the AHL, you're in and around the Vancouver Canucks organization. Who are a couple of your teammates or players, that you enjoyed playing with? And then as well, who are some players that kind of jumped out where you were like, this guy's, unbelievable. I can't believe I'm on the ice with him, and he's just wow.
Yeah, well, going through camps and games with the Canucks. I was in that Pavel Bure era where he was kind of that, I guess from a skating perspective, probably in comparison with what McDavid almost is today, with his speed and agility and the things that he did. So he was a lot of fun to play with and to be with. And Trevor Linden, was a great leader, a great captain, just a nice guy. I remember him treating us younger guys really, really well through those years. And one of the guys that was my first roommate in Syracuse, who ended up playing, with the Canucks, was Scott Walker. So he was still involved in ownership of the Guelph Storm, I believe. But again, another smaller defenseman / forward who earned every bit of what he got. He was a tough customer that literally fought a great deal, but just battled his way into a really nice pro career. And so, yeah, Mike Pekka played with, again, grew up with Mike, playing against him in minor hockey, then again in junior. And then we were teammates on, under 17, under 18 and world junior teams. And so, again, another guy who pound for pound was one of the hardest hitters, I think, probably maybe ever. To be honest with you, you never understood how he could lay guys out, because he was just a really thin guy who, didn't look terribly strong, but obviously he was. That continued again on for him into his NHL career. And so, yeah, lots of great guys. Geez, could probably just continue to rhyme them off, but it was really, really neat to see the progression of some guys. And now today, there's certain reunions where you go back, whether it's the World Junior team or in Syracuse. We were back for our 25th anniversary, which was 5 years ago. So, time flies, but it's really fun to catch up with those guys again.
Do you remember having like a pinch me, like, wow, welcome to pro hockey moment, whether it was, the first time you're on the ice, or a specific play, maybe a goal or a hit or being hit or something, that jumps out?
Well, I remember one of my first games, we were playing the Buffalo Sabres, actually. And, while it wasn't necessarily a big part of my game at the time, I stepped up and hit one of the Buffalo forwards and clipped his knee or something like that. And then I had, these guys like Brad May and Rob Ray and Matthew Barnaby, yelling and screaming at me, and I eventually got into a fight with Matthew Barnaby, who was my age and whatnot, and so that was a big moment. And of course, all the guys that were veterans on the Canucks, were giving you praise for for doing so. So I think that was my first, even though it was never my forte or whatnot. That was kind of my first pro welcome to the big leagues, so to speak, where again, you were going to answer the call from some pretty tough customers for sure.
Absolutely. All right, and then from the AHL, you end up over across the pond playing in Germany for a number of years, from '97 to 2002. How did that opportunity come about? Was it you reaching out, or was it them reaching out to you? And then what was it like playing in Germany? I hear a lot of times people go over there and the fans are just like nothing they've seen before. They're nuts hockey fans, and they're almost soccer fans that got converted to hockey. And so what was your time like over there, that whole process?
Yeah, so after my contract expired with Vancouver, I had no intention of going overseas at that time. Still felt that I was pretty young, and I was injured at the end of my contract, and made things difficult to get another contract. And my agent was the one that reached out and said, "Hey, this is an opportunity." He said, because they start earlier, you could go over, because I had missed some of the previous season, it would have been a good month to get my feet back under me. And he said, if you don't like it, come back, go to an NHL camp and go from there. And anyway, I stayed, of course. Like you mentioned, the fans, it was wild to witness for sure. I always called them mini soccer games, because there was such a loud vibe to the arenas, the singing, the chanting, fans standing. When you showed up for games 2 hours before, there was a large number of fans already there tailgating and whatnot. So it was a really, really fun experience, and it took you a while to adjust to going to watch games back here after, because you kind of looked around and thought, gee, you can hear a pin drop as opposed to what that was, right?
Right. Yeah.
But, even, one of the first big new rinks that they built there was in Cologne, which was essentially a replica of what is Scotiabank Place here now. But at the one end, which people here find hard to believe, it was all behind the net. It was standing room with railings and prime seating locations, of course, over in North America. But they build that for the fan club. So they stand and chant and sing and wave towels and whatnot. So that's how important the fan clubs are to teams there, where priority standing room, I'll say, right behind the nets. So it's pretty neat to see. And, again, I know it's become more of a phenomena here in more recent years for fans to have jerseys of players and whatnot. But then that was a staple. Almost everybody had a jersey. And, it was, I remember being asked at one point by some parents of a younger child to ask if I was going to stay with the team for a number of years, because they wanted to buy my jersey, but if I was only going to be around for a year, maybe not so much. So it was a big deal.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, yeah. Then after Germany, you're back in Peterborough. Was that kind of always the plan? You grew up here. You thought you'd end up back in Peterborough. Did you ever consider, setting up camp in one of the places you played in along the way, one of the towns, or did you know you were coming back home once your career was over and setting up shop here?
Yeah, I think it was pretty well known. My last couple of years of playing, I kind of knew that I was, and started to take courses from a financial perspective, knowing that that was the area that I wanted to focus on when I finished playing. And so it made the transition pretty easy for me because I was prepared. And and I think, yeah, there was no real consideration to be anywhere else, certainly at that time. And had one son at the time who was born overseas and whatnot. So it made the transition to settle back here pretty easy.
Awesome. And then you did, I read you're, still involved in a little bit of the minor hockey coach and stuff. And even more than that, a stint with the Coburg Cougars as their general manager. And, which case you had success winning that RBC Centennial Cup. So, yeah, what was that like to, go from a player to the management side? And did your playing days help you at all in terms of, how to address players and communicate with players? Or what was that whole experience like?
Yeah, it was a fun one for sure. It wasn't something that I thought I was going to do. It wasn't something that I did immediately after playing. It was a number of years down the road, but I got tied in with Coburg, and we eventually decided we were going to bid to host the RBC Cup, and we're successful, obviously. I think that while you're always taking the role seriously, it became real serious when we knew we were going to be hosting that championship, and knew that some of the leagues were extremely strong. The parity is a little different at that level of junior A when you go across the country, and so knew that if we were going to compete and have a chance to, I'll be honest with you, we never really felt like we were going to ever be a strong or a favorite to win that tournament, but we wanted to be respectful, of course. So knew that, when we got into the recruiting a couple of years earlier for that team, I had a kind of a mindset that we were going to have to be a team that was really blue collar. And we weren't going to outskill probably the top teams in the country. So we had a bigger veteran blue collar team where there was a real focus on having four solid lines that could play at any given time. And of course your defense, we had a real good mix of players that again, like you said, from experience, you have to have different characters on the team, even in more modern day. And we had a really good mix of toughness and guys that could move the puck. And we were real fortunate to have a goalie that had been with us for a couple of years before, who grew up to, be a real star for us. And it worked from the standpoint of not only did we win, but I say today to coaches and kids alike, but we used our bench like today. One of my frustrations at the minor hockey level are minor hockey coaches that sit kids on the bench for any length of time, because it just makes zero sense to me. When push comes to shove, you might need any one of those kids to come through for you. Kind of almost going back to the World Junior experience, but on a grander scale from a season standpoint, your club team. And, I said, our bottom two lines, our third and fourth line, vastly outscored our top two lines in that tournament. So it just goes to show you that, they were the ones that had to come through for us. And because they played all season and they got chances to play, they were ready to contribute when we played in that tournament. So, I think that it was a great lesson for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate. I think that's kind of all the questions I had down for you. I mean, your resume is very impressive. It's there's a pattern of winning kind of wherever you go. So you had great success with the Petes and the World Juniors, and then with the Coburg Cougars, and so as again, thank you very much. It was an honor to talk with you, and I thanks for giving up your time in around Thanksgiving, and it's a busy time for sure. So we really appreciate this, and I'm sure the fans will as well. So thanks a lot. Again, I enjoyed this for sure.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And it's always a pleasure to talk hockey, Pete's hockey specifically. And
Mm-hmm.
I wish you guys all the best moving forward. It's a great thing you're doing. So all the best with it.
Sounds good. Thanks, man. Well, we hope you enjoyed that chat with Brent Tully. A great interview. Love to talk hockey with that guy, and he certainly had an unbelievable career, as I outlined in our chat, and had some very, very cool answers. So, thanks again, Brent. If you're listening, we really appreciate you coming on. Yeah, so for the rest of the show, we're just going to highlight where the Petes are going from here this week. They do have a couple more games against some rivals. So, Matt, why don't you hit us with the deets? What does the week ahead look for those Peterborough Petes?
Yeah, so the Petes have actually back-to-back games against the Generals this week.
So 2 wins.
So they're about to put on a show as our theme song. So
absolutely.
Chase the Finish is going to start filling the back of the net. I'm predicting a big game for McIntyre at home.
Yep.
Former General, traded for him.
Yep.
Going to be motivated. So they've got Oshawa coming in on Thursday to the Memorial Center.
Yeah.
They've got a 2-4-1 record, Oshawa. They're actually sitting in the 9th place in the Eastern Conference, right above the Petes. So you could catch this team pretty quickly with 2 big wins.
Yeah. You beat the team ahead of you, you move up quick in this league. So let's do it.
So Oshawa has a good power play, so they're going to need to be disciplined. 25 overall, 30 on the road. Defensemen like to join the rush on this team. They have a bunch of returning defensemen that are very skilled. Danford was a first pick of the Leafs. They've got Sindhu, and the other guy starts with an M. I forget his name. Morelli or something.
Yeah.
And they're both, if you look at their points leaders, I think it's 3 of them are defense, 4 are forwards. So their defense like to push it.
Yep.
Usually when they aren't producing, you can beat this team. So maybe shutting down that back end is the key. But they have a lot of upfront talent. They've got Seneca, Matthew Buckley, Barlow, like we said, who they traded for. So it's a good team that should be better than where they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's where you want them right now. They're a little bit fragile. You come in, you come out guns a-blazing, because the Petes don't want to drop to 0-8 or 0-9. So you come out inspired, and you come up and grab 2 big wins.
Absolutely.
For me, I think at least a win is in the cards this weekend, and I see them at least getting 3 points.
Yep. I agree. I think the Petes, they need to come out super motivated. I hope they've hit kind of the bottom. I hope, and only go up from here. I think they're going to see a very motivated Oshawa team that does think they're better than they are, and probably should have a better record than they are. So I think they're going to come out and want to prove that. So the Petes are going to have to earn it.
Yeah,
it's not going to be a throwaway game. It's not going to be a pushover or a layup by any means. No. But the Petes, they play with emotion. They get the fans going. I think they can make this a very entertaining 2 games and hopefully come away, like you said, with 3, maybe even 4 points. Let's go for a perfect 2 this week. I would love to see that.
Yeah. And last time I checked, we beat London in the OHL final, and Oshawa lost to London in the OHL final last year.
There you have it. So therefore, Oshawa still sucks. The Petes are number 1.
Yep.
So absolutely. Anyways, well, that's our show for this week. Thanks again for listening. It is almost the end of October, getting towards Halloween. Thanks again for following us. We hope you're staying warm as the seasons change, and hopefully better days ahead in terms of Pete's victories. We hope to see you guys at the game supporting the boys. Continue to support those boys. We will for sure, and you should as well. Thank you for following our show. As always, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on our Facebook page, which is For Pete's Sake. You can find us on our YouTube channel, which is posted on our Facebook page. I'll post it to Instagram as well. And we welcome any feedback, comments. Our email address is on our Facebook page as well, or our Instagram. So any way you want to get in contact, we welcome that.
Yeah. And we'll change our name to 4 Points Sake after we get 4 points.
4 Points Sake. I like it. I love that. Well, hopefully, a couple big wins against those Generals.
Yeah.
Thanks again. And as always, go Pete's, go.